So, okay. We're going to look into how to do a select by location. So this is the data we used last year in class. You see it's just the UNE area. I think what we'll do is select all the buildings that are within the UNE parcels. So let's just reduce the amount of data on our map. One way to do that is to, if you hold control and you click the checkbox, it'll turn everything off at the same time. So you can kind of see within our MXD we have a lot of graphics, and this will be kind of what remains when you do stuff like that. When you turn everything off, because these are static in our map document, not actual data, if that makes any sense. But what we can do is turn on UNE parcels, which are these. I think they're just transparent yellow right now. And then we can turn on the buildings, which we got from the State of Maine, I think, website. So one typical way you can search for things, which is probably the best way to search for things in your data, is with a select by attribute. And that's how we originally took these UNE parcels out of the larger parcel database. So we can go, I'll show you how to do that first. If we go into the parcels and we turn them on, these are from the town. Just turn off my blue background, it's kind of annoying me. Okay, so let's also give the parcels some color. Okay, so the parcels are gray. The yellow ones are yellow, obviously, and they're transparent. But let's select those out again from the parcels records. So if we go to the parcel records, we open the table. And we want to, first of all, we can look at the data. This is one of the more detailed data sets that a town would have, would be their parcels. And again, this is, I think I mentioned it, because they want to make sure they get all the money they can from the people that live in the town. They want to make sure they have a record for every piece of land in the town. So you can go over to the place where they say owner name, which we can look. Let's see. There we go. All right, so there's a field called owner name. And I know that University of New England is one of the owners. So I can sort that, right click, sort ascending on the name, and I can go down to UNE with the U, or I can just go up here and click on this little box and do a select by attributes. I'm going to have to remember how to do something. We'll see. So, and then I can say in this select by attributes box, this is kind of helps you write a SQL query, which SQL is just, doesn't really matter that it's SQL, it's just kind of a language that people use to interact with databases. But this thing will help you put it together. So if you go down to the owner name, owner name, let's see, there we go. And you say owner name, and then you do equals, and then you hit this button, get unique values. It'll go through and it will give you a list of all the owners here. And if you click in here and you say go to, you can put UNE. So UNE doesn't exist, but University of New England does. And I can just double click on University of New England. So the owner equals University of New England, pretty simple query. I hit apply, and you can see 16 records got selected before there were none. So if I click on this little show selected, it will just show me the ones that said in the owner University of New England. That's basically how to do select by attributes. And you can see what happened was all of these areas, blue outlines, got selected. And you can see those line up with our yellow extraction from last year. And that's a typical way to do select by attributes. Just to mention, some of the more complicated ways you might want to do a select by attributes was if you had the parcels and you wanted to first of all, if you ever open an attribute table and there's nothing there, sometimes it's just because you're only showing selected records, and there are no selected records, so it's showing nothing. So you got to flip back to show all records down here. But sometimes you can you want to search for things that are within a range of numbers. So they actually have the price of the properties here too. So land, let's say total value. So first of all, we can see that the most expensive thing in Biddeford is this school college. Oh, I wonder if it's UNE. University of New England has the most expensive piece of property with buildings on it in the town of Biddeford. It costs $62 million. Look at that for the building and the land. That's quite a bit, more than I expected. However, let's say we were doing a project where we had, I don't know, looking at political differences, right? And so we narrowed it down. We said in this town we want to look at people that own property that's between $500,000 and $1 million, right? We could do, that would be land value for just property, right? And so then we could do this. First of all, I'm going to clear my selection, and I can do my select by attributes again. This little box up here, select by attributes, and you would do land value. There it is. Oh my gosh. Land value is greater than 500,000, 500,000. And sometimes it's complicated to know if you hit and or, but that's a different story. And would be if you need both things to be true, and or is if you can either one of them could be true, but not at the same time potentially. And then you got to do it again. You got to hit and land value is less than $1 million. One. And if you apply that, it'll select everything that had that medium or that 500,000 to $1 million range. And if you zoom to all of the parcels, you can kind of see the spread of those land values were selected. So you can do kind of select by the exact thing, select by a range of things. And that's pretty, you know, like when you think about it, that's pretty reasonable, right? Like that's like a typical kind of a thing to look for. But the thing that a GIS, and that's like a regular database kind of thing. You can do that in an Excel file very easily. You just filter for things. But with a GIS, you can actually do other types of queries like that based on where things are located in space. So let's say, so for example, these buildings, right? They don't have any, oh, there's a bunch of different buildings in there. All right. So these buildings don't have any attributes that say, so these are all the UNE buildings. All right, 1 second. Okay. Here's all the buildings in Biddeford. There's 9,600 buildings in Biddeford, apparently. They don't really have any information about who owns the building, right? But we do know who owns the parcels. So we can assume that the buildings are owned by the person that owns the parcels. So if we wanted to know which buildings were owned by, you know, a UNE, the only way to do that would be to link them spatially in the GIS. So we could take this UNE parcels that we extracted, we could zoom to them, and we could say selection, and this is another way to do select by attributes as well. You get this little drop down here. You can say select by location, and you get a lot of interesting options here. So basically, you can select features from a layer, and what's always helpful in these boxes is to read them all the way through every time until you get very familiar with it, because you can do a whole bunch of different things. So literally, select features from one or more target layers based on their location in relation to the features in the source layer. Okay, so I'm going to select the features from the target layer, and then so first I'm going to identify the target layer, and I'm going to select features from the target layer. Right, okay, so these are the things that are going to end up getting selected. So I'm going to select buildings, and sometimes it's a mind pretzel to figure out what this is actually saying. But in this case, it's buildings, and I know it's this second buildings here because the other one was just the ones that were already on campus. And then the source layer would be the thing to compare against, to say, is the target layer in the source layer? So the source layer in this case would be the UNE parcels. And then there's a whole bunch of, like, this is kind of core GIS stuff down here, which is, do they just intersect, right? So does the polygon of the building just lay on top of, or does any part of it touch one of the polygons for the parcels? Is it within a distance of one of the parcel layers? So we could say if within 100 feet of the boundary of the parcel layer, so anything along the edge here, like that building might get selected too. You could say, does it completely contain? So like it doesn't just intersect a boundary, it's literally fully within the polygon. As identical to, obviously, if it's got every vertex is the same, and it's got the same data. Does it only touch the boundary, right? Like there's all sorts of things that you might want to know. And kind of basically everything you can imagine is caught in here in some way. But this is where you pick that. But anyway, we'll just do intersect for now. And then we'll just do apply. And we'll see all those buildings on a UNE parcel got selected. Now, I think the reason that these other buildings did not get selected is because they're new buildings and they're only in this layer. Yeah. So it selected all the buildings that were there when that layer existed. And these are the ones, I think we just digitized them in, actually. So that is a quick select by location